Hey, no nation, what's going on? It's CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. I am your host. We're going to jump into the receiver portion of our fall camp preview going into the season. But before we get started, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Again, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're new to the channel, of course, if you subscribe, you'll get access to all of these videos firsthand in regards to recruiting, camp updates, preseason, going into the season, all of the above. So make sure you guys like this video, of course, and subscribe to the channel. It's going to be a fun ride going into this 2024 season. All right, guys, leaving spring practice, this is the position group that I had the most concern about, and that is the receiver unit. There was a lot of inconsistencies throughout the spring practice as far as guys stepping up. Looking at the early, prospects of it, I went to a couple of practices and we took a major hit with Destyn Hill. Ended up tearing his ACL and being out for the remainder of the football season. During those few practices, Destyn Hill was probably the best receiver at that point in time. Well, he was performing like the best receiver. He was making plays left and right. He was looking to be a big-time focal point for this 2024 FSU Seminoles for this season. But, again, that's fine. As far as that injuries happened, it was a minor setback. But as a whole, Destyn Hill, not necessarily as a whole, but just him individually, he was a receiver that I think was primed to step up this year, but was set back due to injuries. And I hated for him due to his situation, as you guys know, waiting 2 years to get on campus for FSU. So losing Destyn Hill did hurt, but FSU did get Malik Benson out of the transfer portal from Alabama, and Malik Benson was good as advertised in the spring practice. Very good speed. He's an elite sprinter, 10 like a 10.6 or 10.7 100 meters, if I'm not mistaken. A very good route runner as well. He was pretty much the most consistent receiver out of spring practice and left spring practice as the consensus #1 receiver going into fall camp. I think a lot of the passing game will revolve around Malik Benson. Had a hell of a day in the spring game, as most fans got to see, but that was just a glimpse, one of the 15 practices that we had during spring. So I think Malik Benson is primed to take that next step and be the #1 receiver for FSU this upcoming season. Transfer from Alabama, didn't have too many receiving yards there due to various reasons. As you guys know, I don't think their passing game with that quarterback is as sophisticated as what FSU does. But coming out of the JUCO ranks, he was the #1 JUCO receiver prospect in the country. So look for Malik Benson to have a huge day. Well, not necessarily a huge day, a huge year for FSU and be that go-to for DJU. So outside of Malik Benson, who's going to be the guy to step up? In my opinion, I think it has to be Hykeem Williams, the 6'4", 215-pounder, former five-star receiver from the Fort Lauderdale area. The only thing with Hykeem, the potential and athleticism is through the roof. He was just very raw coming out. Has to be coached up and developed. He was on that way in the 2023 season, midway, but then he had an ankle injury that kind of derailed him. Coming to the spring, just wanted him to be more consistent, and just step up. That's the main thing, being more consistent and step up. So I think if my apologies. If Hykeem has a pretty good fall camp, I think he can emerge himself in this takeover and be that #2 receiver opposite of Malik Benson. He has probably the highest ceiling in the room overall. Just need him to go ahead and tap into that potential a little early and live up to that 5-star billing as a true sophomore, because if you look at the receiver room, it's very needed. All right, so I guess the main concern, so to speak, is just also older guys who have to step up in the receiver room, right? Older guys who've been around the program that you've been waiting to take that next step and been hearing good things about, but just haven't been able to put it all together on the field as of yet. Kentron Poitier, he's one of those older receivers, a senior guy that FSU is going to have to count on and needs to step up for the 2024 season. If you guys go back to the 2022 season, towards the tail end, Kentron was performing as one of our better receivers for that season. Made a plethora of big plays for us down the stretch. I think Oklahoma had a big game, Miami had a big game, Florida, and I want to say Clemson as well. So Kentron showed a lot of flashes then, and then had some injury setbacks for the 2024 season. Going into the spring, he was inconsistent with catching the football. If you guys remember the spring game, I think the first play of the game, if I'm not mistaken, DJU hit him. He was pretty much wide open, had green grass ahead of him, could have been a 30 to 40-yard gain at the very minimum, ended up dropping the pass. So it's a lack of focus and things like that. But from a talent standpoint, I think Kentron is uber talented, can do a lot of things on the route tree. He's a big receiver too at 6'3", just have to be more consistent. I do think the injury kind of set him back but spring practice, it was inconsistencies as well. So I'm looking for him to carry over and be more focused and just lock in and have a consistent fall camp. If he could do that, that'll help out FSU a lot because we've seen it before and the talent is definitely there. Just have to put it all together. Darion Williamson, he's another senior receiver that really hasn't put it all together throughout his years at FSU, mainly injuries and things like that. But we hear about all the talent that he has from coaches and things like that and what he can actually do on the field, but we have yet to see it. This is the year to put it together. Deuce Spann, if you want to build a receiver from scratch on a Madden player, so to speak, it'll be Deuce Spann, 6'4", around 200 pounds, blazing speed, 4.2, 4.3 guy in the 100 meters. If you guys remember the kick return he took back last year against Duke, electric speed, just hasn't put it all together as a complete receiver as far as route running and things like that, being consistent catching the ball. So he's the guy that has to step up this year too, or you're going to be quite frank, going to be forgotten and put in the back burner for some younger players. Jakai Douglas is the guy that FSU can count on as well. He's a senior that's going to be pretty much locking down the slot position for FSU. Was injured early on in the season last year, but during the second half, pretty much came in and locked down the starting slot receiver role and made some big plays for us. Going back to the Pittsburgh game, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson didn't participate in that game due to injuries. And he was our leading receiver in the Pittsburgh game, having over 100 yards and also making some big key catches in other games. For example, Florida, if I'm not mistaken, just to close out the regular season. So I think Jakai Douglas is going to be primed for a big year as well in the slot. He's consistent. He's dependable. He's been making plays for FSU since 2021. So Jakai Douglas, if he stays healthy, he should be a good option for FSU and a bright spot in the passing game. So some of the younger guys who I think will be able to step up, Jalen Brown, redshirt freshman, transfer from LSU. Like I said, didn't play last year, redshirt at FSU, as those guys had, first-round draft picks at receiver and things like that. Speed. Kids from South Florida. He's a blazing speed guy. One of the fastest guys on FSU's team. If FSU can get anything out of Jalen Brown this upcoming year, it'll be good to see what we can do as far as using his speed and using that to our advantage and putting him in good situations to win and make plays. Jalen Lucas, he is the brother of Jakai Douglas. He's going to be a utility guy, receiver, running back, gadget player, so to speak, matchup nightmare, put him in spaces rather, in places to succeed due to his speed and agility and things like that. So he's not going to be a full-time receiver, but you will be able to see him in the passing game. And if it was any type of true freshman or things that I feel like if I want to bet on as far as true freshmen that could possibly contribute for FSU, or what true freshman I would pick that I feel like would be ready the most to contribute for FSU, it'd be Elijah Moore and Wayne McCoy. Elijah Moore just recently got on campus over the summer. He's been turning heads. He's a big-time playmaker, 6'4", really physical kid, attacks the ball when it's in the air. He has... When I say attack the ball within the air, he attacks with an aggressiveness that is his ball, like a rebounder going up to get the rebound. He goes for it. Has very good route running skills as well, too. Physical kid. I think he's going to be a star for FSU in the future, but we'll see if he can crack the lineup and get some rotational snaps and actually be a factor for the 2024 season. And LaWayne McCoy is the other freshman receiver that, if I had to pick, would also compete for playing time as well. Real smooth guy, real smooth route runner. Played in the spring, made a lot of plays for FSU in the spring during the practices and things like that. He was a guy that the coaches, spoke highly of. So if I had to pick two true freshmen to kind of come in and play for FSU, if need be, it'd be those guys. So I think the room overall is immensely talented. We just got to put everything together and be consistent and show that talent. But we'll see how it plays out once fall camp comes and we get those reports. Make sure you guys lock in with DoakTalk. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. Go Noles.